Yeah, I looked it over too.
You good with that? No, I mean, I can even do a refresh, but we're ready to go. Good evening, I'd like to welcome everybody to the regular meeting for North Branford Planning Zoning for Thursday, June 29th. In attendance are regular members DeFrancisco, Galdenzi, and Dulac. The meeting minutes from the 16th, May 16th, June 6th, we'll table those to the next meeting. I think, because Bill wasn't here on the 16th, and I don't think I was here on the 6th. So we'll table those. So
Bill was not here on the 16th?
No, Bill wasn't here on the 6th.
I wasn't here on the 6th.
Oh.
Yeah, so, yeah, and I wasn't here on the 16th. I did say that wrong. Right? I don't think I was here.
You were here.
I was gonna say, I
Oh,
haven't
we're here?
chaired, I haven't
So we
chaired a
have the
meeting in a while.
16th. Yep.
Do you want to do those? I'm sorry. Alex, do you have those, or Bill, if you need a copy?
Which date was that?
This May 16th. For some reason, I didn't think, I wasn't here, but,
Yeah, we could do that one.
all right. Let me just take a look at it again. Do you want to see it?
Yeah, if you have a
Yeah,
copy.
oh, yeah. Alex, do you want?
No, I'm fine.
When you're good, Bill, you can just wait.
There's a very minor thing, I don't know if it's worth changing.
What's that?
It's on this, it says, member Galdenzi made a motion to schedule a site plan. It's a site walk.
Okay, we'll just do that with,
Oh.
yeah, amend that. Yep, when you do that.
It's minor.
Yep,
On page 2.
yep.
Good catch.
All right, just make it as amended, as amended is good enough.
Yeah, I move to approve the Thursday, May 16, 2019 meeting minutes with, what is it, an amendment to add.
Oh, no, just as amended.
As amended.
Yep.
Sorry.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none? I made the change on here if you need it.
Thank you.
All right, okay. So.
That was May 16th. Okay.
What's that?
May 16th, yeah.
Yep, so it's on that one. All right, so we're at the continued public hearing for text amendment 2019-6. So, just to go over a couple things that we've done, or in the last, at the last meeting, or prior to that, we did have a walk on a couple sites, that where this amendment, could possibly fit. And also, at the last meeting, we had a pretty detailed, I'll say, explanation on sound and the effects of, and the distances to the adjacent properties and what those effects of the sound would be. So, I don't know if there's anything you need to add since then?
Well, I was just going to, again, for the record, James Perito from Howland and Sage, I represent the applicant. I'd like to state for the record that the women's soccer team won
I heard.
against Norway. It was a great game.
Sweden.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Sweden. It was a great game, and so we'll probably see them in the semis, as an aside. I think, Mr. Chair, you went through some of the things we did. As you remember, the first hearing, we presented the application, we went through the comprehensive plan. I sort of tried to point out the reasons in the plan that could justify this kind of a regulation. We had the site walk, as you said, at both Van Willigen's Garden Center and Rose's Orchard Farm to see where a potential site could be, since the way the ordinance is proposed, it would only be for the I-2 zone, and presently, those are the only two properties that would qualify in terms of acreage and classification as farms to even apply for the permit to have these farm events. After that, we came back to the next meeting, and we had submitted at that meeting a revised ordinance, which did a couple things, because we talked at that prior meeting about distances. So we increased the distances to both the residential structures and the property boundaries. And we also explicitly included in the revised ordinance the reference to your town's noise ordinance, stating that, very clearly that you have to comply with that. We also went through the noise ordinance and the requirements as to what can happen at the receiving boundaries and properties during daylight and during nighttime hours. And it's all very specifically set out there. I think I also, at that point, I submitted plans showing the distances to surrounding residential sites, and we used our inverse square calculations to try to give an estimate of what different sounds would be at those locations. So since then, in the past, we've had a few events on the site as sort of pre-existing nonconformity. About a week ago, we did have a family wedding there, similar to what happened with Ryan and Kate for their own personal wedding. And one of the things that Ryan actually did was to get a sound meter, decibel meter, and go to various places around the neighborhood to see, what will this be? And he went over to the Crossville neighborhood and sort of walked around on the roads. And the readings he took, and again, it's not scientific, we're not trying to say he's an expert in this, but they were all coming in below the 51. And he said it was a windy night with lots of crickets, so you have sort of this ambient background noise that's going to register on all of that. So I think that we've tried to create an ordinance that meets the concerns of having no impact on the neighborhoods that are surrounding them. At the same time, having an ordinance that would allow a farm event to occur that will meet the market demands. If we create an ordinance that won't meet the market demands, then we won't have events, and we're really sort of not getting where we need to be. I think you also need to keep in mind that when we submit an operational plan, and it's clearly not my client's intent to have weddings all the time, but if, for instance, you have a corporate, like a retirement party on a Friday night, that's not going to go late. It's not going to have, band music. It may have, someone playing violins or something in background music. If someone were to propose, 5 nights of weddings, at that point, when that operational plan comes in, under your existing regulations, you could say, yeah, we're not going to allow that to go on. We're going to say you can have, some of them, but not all of them, or you have to reduce the time frame on those if you're going to have that kind of a situation. So this ordinance just allows you to accept the applications, and then when they come in, you're going to have all the opportunity then to really sort of go through it and say, when are these, how many are these, and you get a better chance. I think it also gives you a great chance to see if these farm events can work throughout the town, but you're doing it in an industrial zone, and you're doing it in a place that already has sort of commercial industrial uses. So I think it's a good way to see if this is going to work going into the future. So happy to answer any questions. You did get a letter, I believe, from the Regional Planning Agency, and they mentioned, which I think they probably were not looking at the revised ordinance that specifically mentions your noise ordinance, but they said, make sure that the noise issues are sort of dealt with. Okay. And I think we had with the revised ordinance.
Gary, I have a quick question.
Do you want me to just read that into
Yeah,
the record, just to
let-
follow
yeah,
up on that?
let's
Go
go ahead
first.
now, that's
Sorry.
fine.
So, the Regional Planning Commission did provide a comment dated June 17th, and it said, "Dear Ms. Duquesne, thank you for sharing the proposed zoning regulation amendments. The Regional Planning Commission reviewed the proposal at its meeting on Thursday, June 13th, 2019. Although there was not an official quorum for the meeting, by consensus of the members present, the RPC recommends that consideration should be given for regulating amplified outdoor music, which may have potential for intermunicipal impacts. There do not appear to be any impacts to the habitat or ecosystem of the Long Island Sound. Please contact us if you have any questions." Michael Calhoun, Chairman. That was the only other correspondence we were waiting for.
The current text amendment, is the one that you just sent out in our packets this week in the emails, correct?
Mhm.
So that's most up to date?
Yes, I think we should go through it, just to make sure that you have the correct one.
Can I so I apologize, I missed the last meeting. I think I deal in sound a lot, not necessarily community noise. And I think you've already recognized this is very oversimplified. There's a lot of technical aspects to
Oh, absolutely.
noise. I mean, this doesn't even consider frequency.
Right.
Frequencies affect noise transmission greatly, so I think this whole inverse square, we just have to be careful
When
that
I
we're not
presented-
misconstruing, like, it's inverse square and, you know, if it's 80 here and we're doubling this, it's X.
No, when I
It's
presented
very
that, I
complicated,
made it very clear
And
that it-
cricket noises are not nuisance, and someone
Right.
playing music and screaming is nuisance.
Understood. And the
So you
point,
just have to be careful with that.
the point with the inverse square was just to try to show that, this is sort of a general way to look at this, absolutely. And
Yeah,
to give
no,
some
I
sense of what these
understand.
were. But I agree with you, it doesn't
I
take into
just
account.
want to make sure the commission also
It
understands,
doesn't
because
take
I
into
missed
account, blockings or open spaces or
Yep.
whatever else going on, so we absolutely understood.
valleys, cold air,
Right.
low frequencies versus high frequencies.
So, Bill, going on to the music and, well, not music, but sound and frequency, all that. I was noticing in the current text amendment that we have here, the hours stayed the same.
Correct.
To 9 PM during the week, until 9 PM during the week, Sunday to Thursday, and 11 PM on Friday and Saturday nights. I know we wanted to possibly
Yeah, but that,
discuss on,
we could discuss that, and that would be something well, so, let me draw back, there's three of us, everything has to be unanimous or it fails, just wanna make sure you understand that,
correct.
all right? So, just, it has to be 3-0, cause there's not a quorum. So,
Okay.
and yeah,
Well,
just
we
making
have-
sure.
we have a
there
quorum,
is-
I mean, we have a
yes.
quorum, but we wouldn't, you can't have just two, you need 3 votes one way or the other. So that's
We're
only-
we're just discussing.
I'm just making sure, yeah, cause we're not, we don't
Yeah,
have
yeah.
3 out.
Mhm.
As far as that, we can, that's the hours they're asking for. We can,
For the event to be operational.
right, but we can have discussions. If that is something that, doesn't fit for you and you wanted to have some discussions around that, we can do that as we deliberate and make that, and we can amend that after, you know what I mean? We can amend that. We can have that discussion. We
Yeah.
could you know, but that's what they've asked for. And if we want to make a change, then what we would do is a group is discuss it, whatever that change is, and vote it to amend this, application to whatever that may come out.
Yeah,
So,
so what,
but we can have that I mean, we can
Yeah.
still discuss it now, though.
yeah, so goes, it was just a clarifying, question or, I guess, concern that I saw looking at this since the last time you guys presented everything, is these hours that were mentioned are for when the events could occur. Obviously, you have cleanup afterwards and everything. So, one thing that I saw now that we're in the summertime, you have fields active, everything's active now, is and this would be something that goes with the local health department, or you sure you'll set up for the appropriate restrooms or receptacles, all stuff like that. Heaven forbid you had an accident or a spillage, and you guys had to handle this right after the event. Was there a plan in place, or do you have a cushion room that you can handle that? Cause that's just in general, and yes, when you go site plan, that'd be something to take into consideration, cause looking at when we did our field walks, and because these are on farm properties, we wanna keep our farms pristine, and heaven forbid there was a spillage or something like that. If that happened like 11 o'clock at night when the event just happened, that might be something to look into. They might need cushioning room, so that way, heaven forbid, something like that happens.
Well, that's
They
just,
have
these are just,
appropriate
these are just hours of operation that the events can be. So
Yes.
they can, so first of all, with the spillage
That would
and
be an
that.
emergency.
Yeah, so,
week.
so,
Yes, there's like a
this is
protocol
only
in
when they're
place.
events, so they can do cleanup and stuff after these hours. It doesn't shut down at that time. But when you get into talking about the spillage and that, I don't think this is the right forum for that. I mean, that would be in the site plan.
Correct.
So, I mean, so we could go with, so these are the hours of operations that, like, any text amendment we have or any regulations we have with our hours. Doesn't mean that the business has to use those hours. So we could take that in consideration on the site plan. This is saying, what we put in here would be the maximum hours. When we
Correct.
got a site plan and say somebody comes back with a site plan and we take in consideration some other things, say, no, you might wanna reduce your hours, for whatever it might be. So, but we can take a stab at the hours here,
Yeah.
cause this usually is the guiding light for anything coming in. But for anything else, that would be more like on the site plan, but any kind of like emergency services, whether it would be, even if, God forbid, somebody fell ill or got hurt, walking out and, broken ankle, I mean, if it has to go over the hours, it goes over the hours. I mean, that's with any emergency, situation.
That is just one of my concerns, because I know in previous meetings, we were talking about how much can cleanup go overhand, regular cleanup, not emergency
Yeah.
stuff. So that, I just wanted to clarify that on,
Yeah, and then when we do the site plan and we get into somebody's actual business plan,
yeah.
then we can, that's, if they're gonna say it takes 4 hours to clean up, then maybe the hours of operations need to change or something like that. But we could look at each, we could look at that on the site plan.
Billy, got any other questions?
If you wanna, for the applicant?
I don't know if there are questions. I'm just curious about this. I mean, I don't know if I'm curious. I know, I guess, why you're asking, but I put it, why is, so it talks about the distances, and then it's limiting, you said that you're putting in your regulations that it limits us to not going over 30%. It seems odd that you're trying to limit us to our discretion. You're saying we can't go over 30%. If we feel in our discretion, it has to be what it is. I don't know why we would want to limit ourselves.
Because
We're reasonable, so
when we actually
if you
looked
can
at the
demonstrate,
sites,
if you can demonstrate it's adequate, then we shouldn't be limited.
then the reason why we said that was because when we looked at the specific sites on the two places where those actual facilities could go, anything really more than 30%, neither one of us can
Okay.
comply with, because it's
Yeah.
just from a linear standpoint, that's as far as you can really go on
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
So we increased it sort of to the max we could, given the anticipated location of the event
Gotcha.
sites, okay?
Okay.
And just to make sure that we're all looking at the same regulation, I just wanna go over the distances. So the current version has the designated outdoor event area, this is under the special use standards. Including such areas containing buildings, permanent structures, tents, and temporary bathroom facilities that will be used for such events shall be a minimum of 350 feet from any off-site residential building and 250 feet from any property boundary. Correct? Okay.
So another thing, I apologize I wasn't here last time, but I know in the 3 or 4 other times we went through this, we talked about, so we talked about amplified music. I don't see anything here.
No, there was nothing.
Because we also talked about, like, I understand you needed a tent, but we also talked about, like, amplified music should be in enclosed structures. Or,
Well, that's why he came up with he went through the noise thing, we did the site walk and everything like that, so.
okay.
We can, that's something that,
It kind of goes back to the whole, I understand the whole inverse square, but it's,
Was it possible to go for?
if it's 11 o'clock at night, a cricket making 60 is not the same as
Drama.
someone screaming into a microphone and people screaming on a dance floor. It's just totally different. It's totally different. It's the same decibel level, but it's not the same. It's absolutely not the same.
On the site walk, we saw that where, at least for the Van Willigen site, where the event place would be and where it's sort of situated and how the events are set up, and it would be shown on a site plan, is the direction that the music is facing on is to the south, and that's the east, which is the hill, which is the Branford side where the industrial areas is, and to the south of us, which is all industrial. I would have that concern that you have, if it was pointed towards either Valley Road,
Yep.
again, but that's blocked by greenhouses, or it was pointed to remember the direction there, I guess that's sort of northeast, which is where Crossfield is, that's sort of the northeast. But out in the field, it was really clear, and in the events they've had in the past, that's how that's set up. And I think that, when you look at when they come in with the site plan to show this is how it'll be located,
Mhm.
if it's not located that way, if it's not sort of pointing in the right direction, then I think it's in your discretion to say,
Yeah.
well, it doesn't go to 11.
Yeah,
Yeah.
again, I'm looking at this as a text amendment and
Understood.
not Ryan Van Wilgen's application for a site plan.
Understood?
Well,
And
that's.
I understand there's maybe not many other sites, but there
So-
could be by
But
combination
the,
of
but the
sites.
site plan is where we would take a strong look at any of the sound, potential sound issues, like
Right.
where people live, even though they're 350 feet away, but if it's, we would have a better look.
I
And we
understand,
might even,
but-
even though it's not in here, we could also potentially request a sound study too. I mean, that's like with any
I
application
understand.
comes for us, we can ask like for a traffic study, even though it's not
Yeah,
recommended.
I understand,
so.
but I think we still need to get some basic elements in the text
Okay,
amendment.
then
I
which-
totally understand
Well, which
that.
recommendation then?
I think there needs to be something mentioned about amplified music. Somehow, it's.
Amplified
Well, it's
music
good.
or sound study to demonstrate what.
Something, it was in every
Potential
other
or-
consideration, and I understand. It's an industrial zone, it's better, but there's residents
Right,
still around.
yeah, the number of the
And,
residents.
and this is a text amendment, so.
Do you want to leave here's a couple of things, I'll just go through a couple of mine and circle back. One of the things that I think would be difficult to enforce, and I don't even think, and I don't really think it needs to be in there, is the duration of an event based off of what they provide us in May. So basically, if they say the event's gonna be 2 hours from 1 to 3, which is 120 minutes, and it's 20% of that, you can do the math, and then all of a sudden there's a thunderstorm or something, and they delay it an hour, and they can't go over over 3:30. If we're gonna set hours, if it goes over a half hour, 45 minutes, that's their business plan, so be it. As long as it's within the hours of operations. Plus, one reason I'm looking at it is because it's almost impossible to enforce. Unless somebody's gonna go down there and check it out, and I don't know if that's, the best usage of our town resources. So it's just like any other business. They're open to a certain amount of hours. If they're within those hours, so be it. And if they wanna move, for instance, somebody sets up they're gonna have a wedding, and it's supposed to start at 4:00. And all of a sudden, it's supposed to go from 4 to 8, let's say. Well, something happens, it gets pushed back. Again, the 20% rule, I don't know if that's really necessary to have in there. The 20% on the number of events, I think we should keep that in there. It's a good thing to have, because this is a farm area, and we just don't, like to know what's going on. And so it's just not a business of weddings or events. So, Bill, I was thinking the same way you kind of were on this other one about the hours and sound and different things like that. So doing the walkthrough and then understanding that the site plan will come through for any of these properties that could potentially fall in here. So the hours of operation, I'm kind of okay with. But I agree with you that, the sound and there will be some more carryover sound. Like I said, it's more than just the formula in here. So one option that I came up with is to ensure some, to ensure that even some of the sound carries out a little bit, it doesn't have like a long, all-night effect on it. So what I was thinking is that we leave the hours of operation alone, and then during the week, no amplified music no music or amplified sound after 8 p.m. Just to stop an hour earlier. They can go to 9, but just stop at 8 o'clock during the week. And then on the weekend, no music or amplified sound after 10 p.m. Now, again, that would be a standard. That doesn't mean that on another site plan, when a site plan comes in, we can't take another look at that and say, well,
So, If you
It's
do that,
unenforceable.
what if you do
What's that?
that,
What's
I
that?
would just recommend, adding in there unless demonstrated through a site plan.
Well, okay.
So, if you wanna have the flexibility site by site, then I would say unless demonstrated through the site plan, similar to the wording of, you know, unless the commission finds that there's adequate screening
Right.
from neighboring properties, something along those lines.
Now granted, that could go both ways though.
No,
Like-
this,
Well, it
no,
couldn't
this would be
become-
this would be the max.
It couldn't become
Then the
more
next- it could-
restrictive.
We, it could be, no, less restrictive. It couldn't go to, it could be more restrictive, it couldn't be less.
If you're saying 9 to, say, just using this, if you're saying 9 to 9, and then the site plan comes in and you say, no, actually, we mean 9 to 7, you can't do that. Because this says 9 to 9.
Oh, I got you, okay, alright.
So you could become more lenient with the site plan
Oh,
if
right,
they
right.
can
I gotcha.
demonstrate that they have proper screening and proper distances, and the site plan showing, no, actually, we're going to set up the stage here, and we're going to have an enclosure.
Gotcha.
Why,
Okay.
so why?
So we can just leave this as is if we
Or,
want to.
we heard from public hearing comments, no one had a problem with 9, so why isn't the text amendment 9, and then site plan can be more than that, if they can demonstrate that?
No, we wouldn't, we
That's
wouldn't have.
what-
we
that's
would-
what I'm saying right
We don't
now.
have to put it in. We don't have to
I'm
put
saying
that
we
in.
should put it in. That's why I'm not, I'm just saying, I'm just throwing this out there. I'm not saying
That means they can go
anything. I'm
to
not saying
midnight.
anything, putting it
No,
out
no,
for
no.
discussion. What I'm saying
Right.
is,
He's
we had through
saying-
public hearing, many people, not many people, but people that spoke, they said they actually support Van Wilgens and the Rose properties. They said, actually, the town has a 9 o'clock, if it ended at 9, they wouldn't have any problem.
Right, this
So
was.
why wouldn't this?
This was always in there.
You're saying 7 days a week, though. You're saying 7 days a week,
Yeah,
not
I'm
tonight.
saying-
When this was always in there, so when they came in, this didn't change. This is what they saw.
No, they
I
have
know,
9
and
to
that's
11.
that's what they said. This
No.
says 11 PM.
It was always 11 PM.
I know, and the
And
public
knew
comments.
it was, the public
I
knew it
know,
was
and
11
the
o'clock.
public said they would be okay with everything if it ended at 9.
I'll have to look back on that.
Yeah, there were both the gentlemen that spoke, both said that. So
So that's what-
Carrie's point about that would be the base starting, then the site plan comes in, and we see the site visit, and we see that there's adequate distances. We could say, if they're, whatever we're calling it, goes to 11 during the site plan, we would say, that's reasonable, yes.
Or why don't we just lock it in here and
Because
just
we
make it.
can't, because we can't move backwards.
Well,
Carrie's
we would-
point, we can never move backwards. If
Then why would-
if another property, not these, because we know how these exist, if another property gets combined and it's not that, they're gonna come and say, we want 11 because it's in the regulation. And we're like, well, no, you're really not set up. The residencies are too close. It's not conducive to that. Well, it's tough, it's in our regulations. It says 11. So we're still allowing the freedom if they can demonstrate it. It's just that the bulk base regulation will stay 9. That seems very reasonable to me.
If I could just address one thing before you know, first of all, you probably should close the public hearing. if
Yeah,
you're-
I was gonna, I
if you're
wanted to
done.
make sure we get some
But,
discussion.
under
yeah.
the portion of the regulation that then goes to talk about the permit procedures, and it says that, the first paragraph is that the required setbacks, the maximum number of attendees, number of events per week, et cetera. If the planning and zoning determines that such conditions, limitations are reasonably necessary to ensure public safety or welfare. So I think to pick up on the chairman's point, that, if you state, 9 and then 11, but they come with a plan, you can say, yeah, but we're not gonna allow, I'm not just talking about our site, other sites, we're not gonna allow it to go to 11 in this instance because of the way you're configured with your operational plan. The reasonable condition for you is you go to 9 or you go to 10 or whatever number you think is right at that point when they come in with their plan. And I understand your concern because there could be a condition where in one of the other I2 zones, somebody puts together enough parcels, makes it a farm, and comes in with an application. So you're correct, you have to look at this from the standpoint of it could apply to any place that qualifies. So maybe the permit procedures give you the power you need to make those conditions and those restrictions when you feel it's necessary.
Wait, we wouldn't be able to do that, though. If you have it till, if this says to 10 o'clock in the, the site plan, it says to 10 o'clock, then it's gonna be 10 o'clock. We wouldn't be able to cut back and say, nah, you can only do it to 6.
So you rather have the authority
You
to
know,
say.
we wouldn't be able to. We wouldn't be able to.
You'd rather have the authority to give more leeway in those, if it's demonstrated that you say if you can go to 10, but there's more leeway if you can show the way it's situated in your plan.
But yeah, that's what Bill's
That's Bill's-
recommending.
Okay.
I just have
Yeah,
concern,
as you-
concern is how do we, what is the basis of judging what is adequate and what's not adequate? So, that would be something that, when you did a site plan, if somebody deemed it inadequate or adequate, what would be the, you know, the criteria to do that? So, I mean, what we're
What's the
doing is.
criteria now to say it's adequate to go to 11?
I said, my recommendation was have the music cut off at 10 o'clock.
What's the criteria you're basing that on?
The site walk that we did.
It would be the same criteria you'd use
I would-
evaluating the site plan, though.
Yeah, but you're talking, no, you're talking about
This
the
is,
hours.
we know, this is not about your property.
Well, Bill, then I would make
It's
a
a text amendment.
recommendation, instead of us beating this around, we need a recommendation.
I gave you a recommendation, 9 o'clock.
Okay, all right. Again, so what we would do is we can, well, we'll get to those later. So is there any other comments you wanna make?
So I just wanna clarify, so are you saying the events are till 9, or did you wanna break out the music? Because that was one thing that Harry had mentioned.
Yeah, I would say, I
is
mean,
no
I'm assuming
amplified
it's.
music past a certain time unless demonstrated, or do you just wanna say
Everything's done.
everything?
I'm still on the idea of keeping the hours of operation as it is and just making the cutoff for the music at 8 PM on the weekday. And Bill's recommendation would be 9 PM, on the weekend.
So Bill, everything you're looking at,
What's that?
What's that?
or are you looking at everything or just the music?
I don't know, I was, certainly the music. I'm starting to reflect back on the many times we've been through this with the same discussion. There's no difference really. It's an industrial zone, but there's still residential.
Yeah, there was a big difference.
So we
because-
had lots of conversations about,
Well, the other one that came for us, there was no limitation of number of events. There was no things that were coming in, so it was basically an event.
right,
Right,
I'm
this
talking
one is-
about, I'm
this
talking
one's-
about the
So we
the
had no.
noise, we had amplified music, we had enclosed areas for music, we had hours of operation restrictions. We were talking about all that, it never went anywhere, but we had lots of discussions around it.
Well, the first meeting, is the enclosure,
I
Well-
think for me is limiting the time for amplified music, if that's what we feel, but leaving it where if the site plan, we can look at the site-specific details. We can make adjustments based on that.
we can only allow more hours, not less.
We could look at,
That's
another
what I'm
thing
saying.
is if it's, I'm just exaggerating, if it's 30 events versus 10, then there may be more leeway to times and stuff. I mean, you have to look at the holistic
Yeah, we did.
site plan.
All right, so, any other comments? Because I want to, so the public hearing is still open, so if anybody from the public would like to speak on that? Anybody at all? So, is there anything else you need from the applicant before, because once we close the public hearing, we cannot go back to that. Is there anything you need?
So the other thing about closing the public hearing is that only you three can sit. So if you continue this to the next meeting, if you don't make a decision tonight, only you three can vote
Right,
at the next.
so I was gonna go with that next.
Okay.
Because again, everything we have to do would have to be unanimous. Is that the right word?
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, I know we have to request an extension for this, but I mean.
No, we don't. We should do it right here, tonight.
No,
If you went to the
I
next
haven't
meeting.
finished yet. We go to the next meeting. I just think there were other commissioners that had.
Tricia hasn't been here this is the second one she's missed, and she wasn't there for the walkthrough. Ron was here, he was the other one. If that's what we wanna do, I'm all for it. I'm just saying, I just wanna
I wasn't at the last one, so I don't know.
Yeah,
if
Trish
Trish
wasn't
was
here, Ron was here. So, I mean, we can ask the applicant for an extension if you would like. Would you be, let's put it this way, would you be willing for us to extend for one more to the July
Eleventh. There's still no.
Unfortunately, the board can't get together and have a full meeting, I'm sorry.
I know, I'm asking you, if you, no, you can, if you wanna take time to just think about it.
I'm just curious as to why we need an extension, because it's a regulation change. You need just for the hearing, you mean?
Well, there's still the 35
Two.
days.
To make a decision once they close the public hearing.
Right, if they wanted to keep the public hearing open.
Right, I
we
don't know
would
if there's
need
a
an
need for it.
extension.
Right.
I don't know if the need for that, I mean, and at least as I understand it,
Well, I
any
can't
other
close the
member.
public hearing, I can't close the public hearing if another member's gonna join us at the next meeting, is what I'm getting at.
They can't look at the record and apprise
No,
themselves of it?
because once I start,
We would be okay with
Okay, all right, so that's fine, you can extend it to the next meeting.
right.
Okay,
So.
Keep it open.
They'd have to obviously review the tapes.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yes,
just
and
yeah.
then, right.
Yeah, I mean, Ron wouldn't really
Well,
have to, we
let-
would just go.
I was just throwing that as an idea
Right,
for
Well,
discussion.
I have a concern, because I'll be honest, I don't know if we're gonna get a quorum, I mean, I don't think we'd get a 3-0 vote on this right now. So, and I think any
Well,
amendment
that's
may
not
fail.
bad.
I'm just saying that we can,
Yeah.
if amendment fails, then I don't feel confident that,
Well, Harry, can't you do, a string poll to see,
a straw?
a straw poll?
Yeah,
to
but
see if
then,
it was
yeah,
enough, maybe then you'll
but
know.
but we have to deliberate.
Yeah.
So I'd have to close the public hearing to start that, and again, that would still be us three. And again, I'm not that confident that, not only that some of these amendments would pass, that I don't think we'd get a consensus on the actual application, the application itself.
Can we just talk about
Sure.
the wording regarding the time of the events that you're looking at modifying? So, I've heard a few different suggestions. So,
I mean, my
can someone
recommendation would be, and I would bring this up at the next meeting for a vote for amendment, so it'd be, I would not change the hours of operation. I would leave them as is to 9 PM and 11 PM. The only thing I would add in, would be on the weekdays, no music or amplified sound after 8 PM, Sunday through Thursday, and 10 PM on Friday or Saturday. Bill would like 9 on that, but I'm just saying that's originally what I had, so it'd be one of those two. And we could put 9 o'clock. I mean, I'm gonna leave mine at 10. I'm at 10. So that's what that was gonna be my recommendation, that's what I was gonna bring up for a discussion. And also, I was gonna ask to eliminate the word "the duration" in the third paragraph, under midway through the paragraph, an increase of not more than 20% in the number of events or the duration. I was gonna ask to amend that to eliminate the duration.
Where is
so
that?
an increase of not more than
Number
20
3?
in
Number
the
3.
number of events.
Right, the
of
number of
each.
events stays, but I
Oh.
think, again, I don't think
Oh,
we can,
yeah,
I don't think
duration
we can,
point.
I think
Yeah, I understand.
the enforcement of that, or whatever it's.
Oh, so
Here,
20
I think it's actually, you have to take out, or the duration of each such event.
Yes.
That's,
Yes,
That's the
yeah,
one. Yeah.
that piece of that sentence, and then
Okay.
it gets to what you want, which is
Yep.
just the number of events.
thank you. Okay. So those are the two things that I was gonna bring up.
So,
Since it's a public hearing, do you wanna see if there's any comment or feedback from the applicant on those potential changes, or?
I was gonna do that, yeah, I mean.
so the number of events.
They can do that as a site plan, you know, if they really wanna push the hours. for
No,
it.
but, I mean, now's the opportunity for the text amendment, if they.
Oh, yeah. I mean, would you, that's my recommendation. I don't know if you have any comments on those two. As long as it's not open, I mean, I know it's, you know.
I think the change in the durational one is fine, and I know from discussion with my client that I think the 10 o'clock is workable for that. I know that at the most recent family event that they had, Ryan, who's there, said, yeah, I'm gonna close things off, at 10, because, you're tired at that point. You wanna, clean up and go, because he's the owner, he's there.
No, it's that's just sound. The hours of
Understand,
operation would
understand.
stay as you've
Yeah,
had.
but
It's
I think this, if it does go to 10 for the sound,
Right.
then things will wrap up and
Yep.
be cleaned up and go on earlier, which is probably not a bad thing.
Right, so we had 8 PM on the weekday, or Sunday through Thursday, 10 PM on Friday and Saturday.
Right.
Okay.
I think that's workable.
And you're good with the
Yeah.
duration, taking that out? I
Yeah,
mean, I don't
that's
see any,
fine.
okay.
So if you all agree to that,
Well,
then you
I mean, we
wouldn't.
can't really agree to it.
No, I'm
Yeah.
just
In general,
hypothetically.
yeah, we'll have a
So
discussion next
then
meeting.
you wouldn't necessarily need that unless demonstrated through a site
No,
plan
no.
to extend it for.
Right, correct.
So,
We wouldn't need, I wouldn't like to put that in there.
I don't, so I just wanna
Yeah.
say again, so this has nothing to do with, because this is not about these two properties. We already said that if we put 10, we can never go backwards. If someone combines properties and it's not conducive to that, there's no flexibility to it, so.
Then you, if there's a problem
I don't know
with
why we
sound,
wouldn't say 9, and then
if there's a.
site plan would dictate going to 11, maybe.
If there's that much of a problem with a site plan with sound, then I would be the first one to deny that application for a site plan because of the noise. So, I mean, it doesn't
But if-
matter about the
but
hours.
if it's in
about-
here at 9, and then we wouldn't have to deny anything.
No, but but it wouldn't matter, because if it's the sound, if the sound and the residents in the area are the ones being affected, and that we can prove that, and there's a showing on that, and they're close, and it's
that's-
a big area, then we would deny the site plan.
I understand.
You know.
That's your opinion. I see the total opposite. I see, we got public comment.
We had one person, I just looked at the record, the first person said was just concerned about noise, no time on that. And,
I think they agreed with each other. I think he gestured that I agree with.
Okay, there was a couple of people.
Yeah, that was the only ones that
What we'll
spoke.
do is at the next meeting, we'll bring up the amendments for discussion. Because I think that if you get to site plan, and you start monkeying with the hours and tinkering them, one thing we've been doing is tidying up our regulations. As you always say, we don't wanna have that gray area. This regulation, we put this in place, this is what we abide by.
Mhm.
If we do look at this and there's a site plan that comes in where it doesn't fit, then we would deny that site plan based on this. So tidying up the regulations has been a goal of this commission,
Okay.
so we don't have that gray area.
So, Harry, just to clarify with you, say hypothetically, application came in and, like you said, for whatever that given area, it didn't meet that, so you deny it.
Yeah, say it was in the valley.
Yeah,
We,
well,
we know that sound, we do a sound test and it doesn't, we ask them for, do some sound engineering or whatever, and it doesn't fit.
exactly.
Right.
So, the applicant could always, even before they came before us, hypothetically, could reduce the hours themselves.
Correct.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So
They
say
don't
they
have
just
to go
want,
for the full.
correct, say they just wanted to do events during the day. So
Yeah.
they can come in and say, you know what, we're gonna do events from 2 to 7, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sunday, as long as it doesn't exceed these.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So that's easier to do when somebody wants to do that. But then when you start, because if we say that, and one reason that I don't like to say, hey, we'll take a look at a site plan, maybe we give you more hours, is because what is the, it is a gray area, but what are the considerations to do that? So if we had those considerations to put into an amendment, say, okay, these conditions need to be met to increase your hours, I would consider that. But we don't have that, and when you don't have that criteria, it makes it the gray area, where then they say, well, I just wanted I wanted the max, and we really don't have anything to fall back, because we don't have any criteria to do that. Is there anything else? No, what do we have to do? So they agreed to the extension, so do they have to send you an email or something like that?
Yeah, maybe just send an email to agree to the extension to keep the public hearing open. That'd be great.
When's your next meeting?
July 11th.
Is everybody gonna be here? Anybody going away?
No, we'll make sure.
We'll have to see.
Yeah. It will not go past that, as long as we have 3. And I will come back.
Well, we need you 3. Oh, no, because the public hearing's open, sorry.
Yeah, I'm still
Sorry.
looking, it's still open.
Right.
So. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so we're moving on. What do we have? We have a modification for application 2017-13, 48 Tommy's Path.
Yes, so, this I'd like to talk about this evening, and then I am going to just request that we continue this, but I know that we have, a resident here, if you were interested in, taking any comments, we can do that. So, this is,
Is he,
skip the file.
is he a resident of 48 Tommy's Path?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, well, the subdivision, am I correct? We haven't actually met, but you,
Okay.
gentlemen, yes, yes.
Okay, no, I just wanna make sure, we need to take comment, I was kind of.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
So, this is 48 Tommy's Path, you'll remember was a 3-lot subdivision that you all approved, I think last year.
Yeah.
They had to create open space as a result of the subdivision, so they
Right.
created a small parcel. We were hoping that the land trust would take it, but the land trust was only interested if they also acquired 55 Tommy's Path. That didn't happen because they wanted a survey, remember,
Yep.
warranty deed, all of that stuff. So now we're back kind of at the beginning, one of the property owners, so one of the lots has sold to this gentleman.
Yeah, me. Paul Marino,
So
Paul.
Mr. Marino, was interested in one of the pieces of open space that was created as a result of the 3-lot subdivision, so I was talking with the developer, and we said, how about we make those 2 parcels, part of the larger lots, and actually put a conservation easement on those pieces, so that the property owner is responsible for maintaining it. It's not a burden to the town, to the land trust.
Someone's
So-
taking care of it.
And someone's taking care of it, or just letting it go, revert back to natural open space, which is what the goal was. So again, here's Tommy's Path, 22 is over here. So this is Mr. Marino's parcel, this is the piece of open space that would go with lot 2, and this is the piece that would go with lot 3. And so I have descriptions of the parcels that would then be, included on the deed and then transferred or included and recorded on the land records associated with each individual lot. The only change that I'd like to recommend is that this, plot plan be revised to show that it's an open space associated with lot 2 and there's a conservation easement on it, and open space associated with lot 3 with a conservation easement on it. So I have the property descriptions from Navis and Young, but I just don't have the exact language from them regarding the conservation easement, and that should state that it's a conservation easement that should only allow passive recreation, no buildings on it, and it's in perpetuity, no cutting of trees.
Can they, can they mow the lawn or on that, or they can't touch that portion at all?
I would recommend not.
No, I just don't know I don't know, I wasn't sure what could be or could not be.
I guess it's really up to you. In my mind, it was just going to, I would just leave it go wild.
Would it be something just to take care of it, you know, so, I'm kinda anal with my lawn and my landscaping, so if that was deeded over, that would be incorporated too as being, you know, trimmed and watered, and obviously don't build anything there, it's such a small piece.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, but like if a tree falls, do you cut the rest of it down? I mean,
Right,
you know,
right,
and
right.
they should
And
have,
it's
they
not
should have the right to
wetlands or
do that,
anything,
right?
so
They would
that's
have to-
true.
My
So-
neighbor has one, I thought we just have to leave it alone, but I don't really care, I'm not saying, can't, I just thought that's
Yeah.
what
Well,
it
if
meant.
a tree fell, I would say I would have to,
Cut it
Yeah,
off.
the tree would get, yeah,
Yeah.
you can't go harvest
Right.
trees on it,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it sounds
I
good.
mean, I wouldn't widen my
So-
driveway and drive over it, so like, just leave it as,
Right, so
Raise the
no
grass.
buildings,
Yep.
obviously no improvements, but mowing it,
It's
you're
just
all okay with?
conservation,
So conservation easement as far as no building and it's in
So
perpetuity?
Carrie, this is only the small piece that's generated from
Yeah.
these three pieces being made.
Correct.
it actually rolls into a whole other 4 acres of wetland, you can't touch anyway, has a river in it, and
Yes. And that's the land that the town recently had an RFP, and is selling.
Yeah, so let me ask you a
Um,
question,
so-
so say the, land trust comes back and say, okay, we'll take that piece of property, we want those two, can it be reverted back to them, or is this deeded and that's the way, it's done deal after that?
Done,
Okay, for the most part.
essentially, I would think done deal,
Yeah,
because
so-
it's
hold on,
No,
associated
no,
with
I know, I was
this.
just
That's why you
curious in
don't want
general,
it.
I was just curious in general.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so, just because I wanna clean up the language a little bit, I just recommend that we continue this, so I can get
Yeah.
the proper language of having the,
You wanna make a motion to continue it to the,
do you see any issue, I guess, with
I think just
making
get
that change?
clarity on the, what a conservation easement means.
Okay,
I don't really, certainly I don't know, my neighbor has one, and it was always his understanding that, like, he can't do anything with it. So, I don't really care that you cut it, but
Well, I
if there's
did-
a rule that says you can't, then
so I
you
did
can't.
talk with the town
Oh, okay,
attorney,
good, yeah.
and, you know, she had just said making sure that there's language like no improvements,
Oh,
meaning
yeah,
like no
okay.
buildings
That makes sense,
specifically, in perpetuity, but it's up to the commission, if you're okay
Oh.
with him mowing it and, you know, putting some plantings in there,
Yeah.
just keep
Keeping
it
it natural.
wildlife, I guess, and natural, that's fine.
yes,
That's, I think that was the
Yeah.
intention of the main and
Right.
behind it.
right. Okay, so we'll continue that,
Yeah.
just to take action on it, but this, I think, makes the most sense that it's with the adjacent property owner as opposed to even going with an association, because then that would
Right.
require who's going to maintain it and who's responsible for it, so,
So do we need a motion to continue?
yes, please.
Okay, I'll make a motion to continue application, 2017-13 subdivision of 3 lots of Tommy's Path.
Second,
I second. Sorry.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 3-0. Thanks, thank you. We'll be back on the July 11th, agenda.
So, do you need me to come back for any questions on that, or you just?
No.
I don't think so, I think most of those are just on the conservation, you know, the definition of conservation easement
Yeah.
and what it entails, but other than that, I don't see any.
You know, just have,
Eddie,
Eddie, or should I just have my attorney contact you guys, and you're gonna drop some sort of letter and.
yes, so once it's approved, which hopefully will be in July, then we'll send out a letter saying the actions that were taken and that it was approved. And then you can record the new property description and the new parcel map with on the land
And I
records.
would incorporate into my current
Deed,
deed that I have,
yes,
and then you just basically say, just leave that way,
exactly,
and then stuff.
yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So when's the next,
July 11th? Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So, can someone make a motion? I have two amendments two
New
items to
business?
add to the agenda. One is new business. I received a request this afternoon, actually on Tuesday, sorry, to, request a 90-day extension of the filing period for the Riverview subdivision at 363 Totucket Road. That's the
Really?
10 lot.
Yeah.
They just haven't recorded the Mylar yet, so they're looking for an extension for that.
We have to add it to the agenda first, right?
Yes.
So I make a motion to add to the agenda under
New business.
under new business.
Number 2.
Number 2, to discuss a 90-day extension filing period for 363 Totucket Road subdivision.
What's the
Riverview.
second, what's the next one?
And then the other item, under town planner's report, I'd like to talk
Okay.
about, discussing events in residential zone,
Okay,
Okay.
outdoor events in residential
so,
zones.
so we make a motion to add that in there to town planner's report?
I move to add under town planner's report to discuss events in residential zones.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda has been amended. Okay,
So the first is this request to, for a 90-day extension on recording the Mylar for Riverview Farms. So the initial approval would require that the Mylar be filed on the land records by July 18th. So this would grant them an extension to October 16th of 2019.
is there a reason why the delay? I mean, I'm, not to get, I mean, is it?
So, we've been back and forth with them about, so they need a bond prior to filing the Mylar, so I think that's what's holding them up, and there's a lot of parties involved,
Gotcha.
developers and the property
Hmm.
owner. And with the water line being
Yeah, the
extended
water.
up Totucket, they're just trying to get everything figured out.
Okay.
So, does this impact, cause I didn't know what their schedule was for doing the culverts, cause that's a separate application, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Is that still
That
on
is still
schedule?
planned, it is still planned.
It
I
stopped
met
raining.
with Mark DeLongo, who is the current property owner,
Okay.
this week, and he said that's planned. So once they get going on 363 Totucket and the development there, he did say that they would remove those culverts.
Cause I know developers wanted to wait until usually like July or August when the river's the lowest.
Exactly, right.
Okay, so I didn't know that was gonna
Yep.
happen. 'cause it's separate and-
Hopefully that will happen this summer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I move to grant a 90-day extension on recording the Mylar for Riverview Farm subdivision 363 Totucket Road, North Branford, Connecticut. 10 lots and a 9.9 plus or minus acre open space parcel. Assessor map 36, lot 10, R40 zone. Owners, What TF LLC. Applicant developer ATA Realty Incorporated. As approved under P and Z 2019-2 on March 21st, 2019, which extends the deadline that the Mylar needs to be filed to October 16th, 2019.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, that passes 3-0. Okay, so now moving on to the referral of the draft POCD, review and referral of the POCD.
So I
Good to go.
looked through, had a bunch of comments that I sent along to them, which were incorporated. There will still be a few more changes, but if you're okay with this as is, I would recommend that you make a motion to refer this to the town council and also the Central Connecticut Regional Council of Governments for their review.
Did we put Waldo in the sunflowers so we can
Yes.
try to find it? Does
But
anybody have
you
any-
actually,
Yeah, I mean, we had, I think you've got comments, I would assume from other folks here.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think we're good to go.
so just
You
to
know,
go over.
Unless anybody else has any comments tonight.
The only comment I have is that you and I were involved in the previous one. I mean, I think this is really nice.
It's
Yeah.
much more improved.
Yeah.
Much more professional looking, and
Right,
I think it looks great, yeah.
right,
I think it's a
good.
great job they did.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
really love the engagement of the community and all, the whole process was good.
Right, well, and this also just kicks off
Yeah.
the full engagement of,
Yep.
on the draft plan, so if you refer this to, or when you refer this to the town council, then, that triggers the 65-day comment period, which means that we can't make any changes within the next 65 days. We can go over the 65 days, but we also have to hold a public hearing, at some point within that timeline. So I was talking with my Lauren McBroom, and we were looking at maybe the September 5th planning and zoning meeting to have that be a public hearing on the POCD. And sometime in between now and then, we would go before the town council and present it to them. And typically what most town councils do is they just acknowledge it. They don't even vote to endorse it. It's kind of like no action means that they endorse it. And then obviously during the process, during the comment period, we would post it on the website, file it with the town clerk, have a legal notice, just so people know that the public hearing's happening and they can come and comment.
So, M&M they would come to the town council meeting with us?
Yes.
I think they said they would.
Yes.
So, yeah. Any other?
And that's
No,
scheduled for
no, it's-
September 5th?
So that's what
Well,
I'm recommending,
yeah,
but
sure.
Could
I
change.
didn't know how you wanted to handle it tonight, if you just wanna say, you know, you're making a motion to refer it to the town council and the regional council of governments, and a public hearing will be set at a later date, and then we will notify them once we decide as a group.
So the public hearing would be with here in town, planning and zoning?
Yes.
Okay, so, I mean, we would just put that out with the public hearing like we normally would do?
Yes,
Okay,
okay.
all right, yeah.
And I just would really wanna make sure that all 5 of you are here, and that members of the steering committee can attend as well, and.
One thing, if you have any more, you gonna have any more discussions with them?
Milo and McBroom?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So one thing is when we get closer to, when we do set a date for the, public hearing,
Uh-huh.
if they can do a reach out to all those that have responded by email saying, hey,
Oh.
I don't know if, I mean, it would be just to
That's
let them
true.
know.
That's a good idea.
They wanna come and
We could
support
do
it.
that from the
or
POCD
whatever. Yeah.
webpage through the survey, because we have
Yeah.
all of their emails.
Yeah, so if we can, yeah, I mean, I don't know.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, it's good.
them
Especially
know.
since,
Put it out in the papers.
yeah, when we had our 2, activities at the intermediate school, considering all that, you had so much feedback with the surveys, and then, what, you had maybe
30.
30 and maybe
Right.
40 between the 2. That might be useful if anyone does have feedback.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we can even do the, what's his name? Ask Mr. Winnicki if we could do
Oh.
like maybe a.
The reverse 911?
Yeah, like 8 days before, you know, like the
Okay.
Wednesday 2 Wednesdays before the
Mhm.
public hearing or something like that, so 8 days,
Mm-hmm.
so. I mean, I just let people know that it's complete.
Well, and the other thing I was going to do is, over the next, before the public hearing, send out this table in the back to, wetlands, everyone who's listed as a lead identity or lead entity, for these items, to make sure that they look at them and.
They're on board.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, do you agree with this, do you not?
That's the first thing I looked at before I looked at anything like
Right.
that, there's, okay,
Right.
there's P and Z on this.
Yes, okay.
Good point,
Okay.
so. Alright, so would somebody like to make a motion to refer the POCD to the town council and the regional council of government, also known as COG? Or-
I'll make a,
Scrub.
Scribe, right.
I'll make a motion to refer, the draft of the plans of conservation and development to the town of North Branford, town council and
Scribe.
scribe.
Is there a second?
A second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
That passes any opposed? That passes 3-0. Okay, town planners report.
Okay, so just going in order real quick, so July 11th, we have many public hearings. So we have the continuation of the public hearing on the farm outdoor events. We have a public hearing on 3 different text amendments, commercial vehicles, regarding making sure that they're parked on the lot and then screened properly, and then they cannot exceed 2 tons. We have the coverage increase from 10 to 15% in our R40 zone. And the last one is Department of Environmental and Energy Protection, DEP? Energy and
Energy and
Energy and
Environmental
Environmental, not Energy
Well,
Protection.
yeah, but that's really.
Energy and
Oh.
Environmental Protection.
But there's nothing we can do really do on that.
That's the stormwater
Right.
regulations, right.
We just have to
As
adopt
part
it.
of
Yeah, that's
the
the town
municipal
adopting it.
separate stormwater,
Yeah.
MS4. So those are the 4 public hearings. Oh, sorry, and then there's one more, a special use permit request to convert the existing hair salon on Foxen Road to a convenience store. So that's on the corner of Beach and Route 80, heading towards Guilford. So just a change of use, essentially.
To a
Convenience store.
Yeah, no gas, no
Right,
gas.
no
in
gas,
there.
no gas. So we have
We have that, and you have
big
the,
meeting.
You have the continuation of the other one too from tonight.
Yeah.
Oh, and then the continuation of the
the subdivision.
subdivision, right? The changing the open space to putting it into a conservation easement. So that's that. The item that you just added, I wanted to talk about having events, outdoor events or farm events in the residential zone. So these are occurring throughout town. Just as they said, they had a wedding a few weeks ago on their property. So I'm just wondering if you want to revisit this over the next few months, look at maybe whatever version you end up agreeing with. One thought was to look at the industrial zone regulation, which requires industrially zoned at 20 acres. Maybe you look at residential zone and increasing it to maybe 60 acres.
Well,
Or
how many?
40 acres. I don't know.
Well, in residential areas?
Mhm.
Well, how many, I'm just saying, we would need to get an idea of how many residential areas, farms or whatever have 40
True.
acres, 60
Right,
acres.
so maybe it's 30, but you increase it from the 20.
So,
One thought,
so when you
but
say
I don't-
these are going on now, do you mean, well, no, I'm not gonna, what do you mean by that?
Weddings have occurred on farms.
Yeah.
Other farm
In
events.
residentially zoned areas. I have not received any complaints.
Right, because the only thing is, because if they have, like, Wilton's had their family wedding, you know, their wedding, family wedding this past weekend or last weekend, whatever it was. So those could be done, it could be done in somebody's, you know,
True,
even
well-
somebody who's in our, you know, who's my backyard.
Exactly, so
Right.
that's where, not only have I not received any complaints, but it is a hard thing to prove, so even if I
Right.
hear through the grapevine that something may be happening, it's a hard thing to prove whether or not it's a family event and
Yeah.
private event versus something that they're actually collecting money for.
Right.
I just am raising it and bringing it to your attention in case you did wanna engage and go forward with a text amendment.
I'm all on board on that, because that's where I started when I passed those notes over, you know, originally we were
Yeah.
going, that's where we
Right.
heard that's where the discussion where, any music must be indoors, it was residential, when we were talking more residential than industrial, because, at the time, there was no talk of any, or no thought of, having industrial, you know,
Mhm.
farms have industrial in that. We were just talking about, we were more focused on the residential area. I think can you provide us maybe at the next meeting or two, or whenever, the farms that fall in the R
Uh-huh.
and, acreage? Cause that would need to be the starting point. We would need to know, you know, how many we're talking about and what's the min-max of those, of the acreage.
Well, so I can already tell you, I mean, minimum is, 4 acres.
Right.
You know, anything 4 acres is the minimum for the definition of a farm.
No, existing, I'm talking about existing farms. No, I'm
Yeah.
saying, like, can we get a listing of the farms
Do you
and
mean
acres?
commercial farms?
Yeah.
Because if I have 4 acres and I have some chickens, technically I could say I'm a farm. I'm just,
I get you, yeah, let's,
and you know, our office right now, the makeup, we're not that black and white.
right.
Right, so there's an interpretation.
Yeah, so, I mean, I would say commercial, because if they're not commercial, let's start off with that, and then we can go from there.
So, in the POCD, there's the farm inventory map.
Well, Harry, the other question too would be, and this goes with a lot of the older farms in town, is, cause sometimes they get subdivided between all the family, extended,
Mhm.
this and that, but still the farm is together.
Right.
Do you include those, even though it's actively being farmed, or maybe it might be a trust of that land, in that, or does it have to be, that particular parcel has to be this minimum?
Well, if we're gonna have a regulation, it's gonna have to probably be the actual parcel, unless, I mean, we'd have to think about how that's gonna be handled. I get, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but that's
what-
one
yeah.
thing you have to take into account, cause
Yeah.
that's gonna cause that map to be different.
But yes, we should take a look at that and come up with some kind
Yeah,
of
I
regulation.
think we said that, in principle, we're gonna have the whole farm events be all-inclusive and maybe bolt-ons for industrial, but obviously these guys are ahead of it. But I think the intention was always to try to do something, just to get ahead of it.
And I think the concept is following what was originally proposed with, tweaks needing to be made. But in general, I think the concept of having a special use permit for, a special use permit for the events with a site plan and then a listing of events on an annual basis. So it's like a two-step process, because they have to come in for public hearing to let everyone know that we are going to be having events, but every year we have to submit our inventory, our itinerary of events.
And just to clarify, they're events, not farm activities or farm complements like were expressed in
Correct.
the industrial one. Like, for example, like some kind of crop picking or
Right.
promotion
Hayride.
directly that's involved with it.
Right.
These are wedding or
Exactly.
like an office party.
Corporate events.
Yeah, farm
yes.
stable dinner. I mean, I
Well,
think.
one that's farm table was talked about beforehand and has been said both ways.
Yeah.
Because does it directly apply or not? So that's something to go with that, but there are some farms that can showcase that everything comes from the farm, or you're
Yeah.
doing it as educational and technically, well, that's completely farm, then that. Or is you're just utilizing that farm, you bring everything else in, and you're saying it's a farm to table.
See,
That's the gray area.
I see, if you're picking crops, you're working on the land. You're almost accessory to the land. I'm like replacing you on your property. It's like a day being a farmer. When you're having a farm to table dinner, it's like a different experience that wouldn't happen normally with everyday farming. Even like a hayride, I would say, is like accessory too. It's like you're already riding the tractor around, you're just having people experience what's already occurring there. But if you're doing a dinner or something that's doesn't normally occur there, in my mind it changes it, pushes it a little bit farther.
Of course, that'd be up for discussion when
Yeah.
you're talking about that, but yeah.
Right, right.
Or similar events,
Sure.
whatever it might be. Because
Yeah.
we've, like Bill mentioned, we've dug into this.
Yeah, we
Many
got pretty
hours.
close.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's where it stalled last time, is a lot of the farmers said,
Defining.
this is gonna pigeonhole us, so we can't even do these infrequent things we do, 3-4 times a year. That we're gonna have to do this whole,
Which, right.
that's kinda what I remember. I don't
That's,
know if
no,
that's
that's
right or
exactly
wrong,
what
that's what I
and
remember.
that's what I've been told
It's
recently.
like, I just wanna have just
but
a,
it's funny because I feel like now what's happening is that the events are happening and I have not received complaints, but it's almost like now we're trying to catch up. So they're already happening, so
Yeah.
now we're trying to like cast a net around it to say, well,
I think it's when it becomes not the primary use, but a business. And it
yes.
starts taking over
It
the.
becomes
Yeah, I mean, we could-
Like when I think one of the proposals was 36 a year or
Right.
something. I mean, that's like,
Right.
that's not
Right.
accessory to the farm. That's
Yes.
a farm.
becomes the
That's a
principal.
wedding place that happens to be on a farm.
Right.
It's not a farm that's just doing
Right.
occasional
Yeah,
events.
anything we should do should have minimal impact on the farmer. I mean, they can do their thing, I think it'd just be, it's basically just an ordinance that says, okay, here's some, I don't wanna say restrictions, but here's some of the guidelines. After a certain time, there's certain things you can and cannot do. They can, I mean, but
It's a
we
supplement.
have to be careful with that, though.
Yeah,
At the
it's
same
But I
time,
think
It's a
the-
supplement to your operations. Yeah.
Right, but this is
Well-
intended for those businesses, meaning farms, that are looking to go beyond their everyday activities
Mhm.
and events and really have like a separate
Yeah.
enterprise.
Yeah.
That would be like event hosting,
Mhm.
Yeah, and
not
some
like,
people
not,
might-
not picking, not
Yeah.
showcasing everyday activities. I
Not
guess.
educational or like hosting like one of the farm, not say clubs or entities in the state, but like you said, it's office parties or
Mhm.
stuff like that, yeah.
so I'll work on kind of drafting something.
If we,
I
if
think
we
the
can-
11th is gonna be
Yeah, no,
too
it's-
much,
yeah.
but maybe for August.
Yeah, but if you can also just put a listing of like how many, anything over, anything over 2 acres.
Okay.
And I'm not, and that's farms, not any residential
Well, no, Harry,
properties that have.
It has to be, anything over.
4.
4.
Four,
I'm sorry.
is it 4 or 5? I thought it was 5, or 4, is it
I think
4
it's
point
4.
something?
I think it's 4.
It's between 4 and
Yeah,
5,
I-
it's technical
that's what I
one.
meant, yeah. Either one.
But essentially, they have to be a farm to even be considered.
Yeah.
Right, so
Because-
it's,
So I don't
And
wanna,
then-
also, you don't wanna restrict it
it's
where.
3.67, it's
Okay.
160,000
Is that less?
square.
And just
Feet.
we don't have the setbacks, cause we have another, but the setbacks may limit the ability to do something on something that small
Sure.
anyway, you know, but that's besides.
Well, yeah, when
the
they
point.
came in for
That's-
their
that's-
site plan.
That's detail, yeah.
What's that?
If you had something like Bill mentioned, if you had a farm that small, the setbacks or whatever might
Right, you
even
can't
prevent them
meet
from
the
even.
You might not be
Setbacks
able-
for what?
50 or 3.
You know how we said you have to be this X amount, this is like 350 from a property line or 250.
Yeah, but I don't think that the regulation.
No,
was-
as I said, we don't have the
that.
regulations, I'm just
No,
saying.
I'm just, yeah, so I mean, I'm just, maybe we don't do a regulation, but we do we say that there's certain things you can't do instead of what you can do. So for instance, I'm just gonna throw this out there, you wanna get married on your farm, right? Let's just say, you wanna have, or somebody in your family wants to get married on your farm. Well, if you have a event thing, then you have to go through, you may not be able to do it. Let's say if you had setbacks, certain things, you couldn't do certain things, have that event on your farm. Me as a residential owner of a house, with no worries of setbacks or anything, I can have an event on my private property, where you would not be able to if there was a right, so keep that in mind. So
Well, no,
whatever
even
way-
with that, no, because
Yeah,
it's a
just-
private
yeah,
event, you
private
still
event,
could.
Not if you're a farm and there's a regulation saying there's certain things you
But
can
then
and cannot
that's
do.
not, because the example you
I'm
just
just-
gave, that's,
Yeah, but you're not, you're doing it on your business, not on your private property.
no, technically that's the farm's.
You got, that's what I'm saying, we gotta be careful with that, and I would want our lawyer to look at any regulation we wrote, because that would be, because on my house, in my property, in my house, I can have a wedding. But if
Correct,
there's
but
a
you're not
regulation,
making a profit off
right,
that.
but if there's a regulation that says that a farm can or cannot do something, or they couldn't do events unless they have been approved for it, you might not be able to do that. I'm just throwing it out there saying, whatever we do, I would like our lawyer to take
Yeah,
a look
of
at that,
course.
because
I would
there
think
is
though,
a,
if it's a
there is a
family or
difference.
private event.
Cause
Yeah,
you're a
that's
you're a business, you're a farm, but then it is private property as well, so I just wanna make sure that whatever we do.
So if you're
has-
making a profit off it, I agree, but if it's private, I don't think.
I don't know. It's-
Your argument applies to this one too, then, if we really want the lawyer to look at it, cause Al
Yeah.
Rose, when his son gets married, isn't gonna come to you and say, I have to
Yeah.
do this, I wanna add this as
Right.
one of my events.
Yeah,
It's
he's
a
gonna,
family,
no, they're gonna have to do that.
I don't think that's
Yeah,
the
that's,
No.
intent of this.
every event that's gonna be on that property is, well, I'll make sure that's clear. When they come in and say, this is what we're having for events, we don't care if they're getting paid for it or not. If
No,
they
but then
need to
you could take that way too far though, Harry, because if I'm
Yeah.
having a
Yeah.
picnic at my house.
Right.
And I have 200 people for a graduation picnic,
Yeah.
I'm not going to get a permit.
If he has,
We have to
if
word it.
if any, and I'm not, we can't talk about this thing, this amendment. Any event that occurs under this site plan must be on that sheet or
So
part of the 20%.
technically, you're saying if.
Private or public or not. On their own private property, they can do what they want, but if they're gonna have a if they're gonna have a
Farm has
private party,
property.
if they're
It
gonna
is,
have
there's
if
multiple
somebody's gonna have
farmsteads on
if
it.
somebody's gonna have a private party,
Yeah.
if somebody's gonna have a private party and on that facility that's been labeled, that must be written, it must be in the
I think,
information we get.
yeah, I think
Yeah,
you're
but-
making statements that may be true or maybe not true, but I don't think, you're
Because
saying it
the-
as it's fact, but I don't know if it's.
It has to be, that's what they're doing. And I
We
can't
don't
think
have we don't have the regulations, so we can't really say
Yeah,
it.
so
Right.
this is.
It's a good point, maybe we have to stipulate that it's
The-
a non-family
despite all this,
event or
Carrie,
something,
every
or for
event.
profit
Every-
event.
yeah, every event.
Scheduling that, can you, I know the last time we did this, we got a hold of the farmers, I know it's farming season now, so
Mm.
that's gonna be a bear just trying to get them down here in August or whenever this might be.
Well, we can wait on it as well, but
Well, no, but you did have, you did meet with them in the past, so I didn't know if you had any recommendations from them or something like that might be taken into account when we're putting this together.
Sure, yeah, I mean, I can reach out to them again,
Yeah.
you know, I think that would be a good
But
idea.
I think that might be helpful, that
Right.
might help Harry in some of his questions that he has.
Who's this?
What's that?
Reach out to who, I'm sorry?
Reach out.
So back when our commission asked to do this, Carrie got a hold of a bunch of the farmers in the fall or winter, whenever it was.
Oh,
And then,
met with the farmers,
Mhm.
yeah, and then
Right,
Carrie
right.
started to put this together with Harry, I believe, and then this current application came in, so then that got tabled to see, well, what's this?
Right.
And
That's right, I know what you're saying.
now we're back at this.
Everything's cyclic, don't worry.
Yeah.
Anything else,
5 years
Carrie?
it comes back.
No, that's all.
So I'd make a motion?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Oh,
Oop, whoop,
Sorry.
No,
you know, sorry, one thing that we should have done at the beginning, did people know that, Charlie Gunn passed away?
Yeah.
oh, I did not.
I meant to,
Yeah, you
I'm
sent
so
that.
sorry.
No, I
So,
thought.
yeah, so he passed away last week, so I
Yeah.
meant to ask you to do like a moment of remembrance
Yeah.
for Charlie. So I know he'd served for over 40 years,
guy.
whether it was on planning and zoning or on the town council, and just was super involved in the town, so he's a huge loss for the community.
I agree.
We will acknowledge it definitely to next
Yeah.
meeting,
Okay.
for sure, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. All right, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.